Hi, I'm Pastor Scotty Ward of New Song Ministries. I have put together this slide presentation and I'm giving it to as many churches as possible to try and help people understand that there are some things you can do to stop and thwart these bad guys from sending spam, phishing, malicious emails and texts to you, to your family and friends, and anyone that you know. These people can be slowed down and maybe even stopped if we all work together. So I hope you enjoy the presentation. Thank you. This briefing was originally given to the Arizona jurisdiction of the Church of God in Christ, but it applies to anyone. It can be used by anyone. I just want you to know that you can do things that will help prevent you from being the next cyber scam victim. This presentation, again, is given by myself and my wife, Dolly, with New Song Ministries, Education and Outreach. Jesus says, "Look, I am sending you out as sheep among wolves, so be as shrewd as snakes and harmless as doves." We have to remember that we are here in the world, but that does not mean we have to play the game like the world does. So a little bit of information about me and my wife. We are both cybersecurity mentors. We both have a security background, and we've been doing this for some period of time. So I do hope that some of our expertise can be helpful to you so that you can get smarter as well. We have a goal today, and that is that at least everyone who watches this will learn one thing. Even if it's just one thing, I think it will have been worth it. So let us know at the end if you did learn at least one thing. So you will see a number of these Scotty recommends slides in this presentation, and these are basically things that I think you can do immediately to help make yourself smarter and more resilient to cyber thieves and criminals. In reference to just general cyber hygiene, there are three things that I recommend people do at all times and for all online accounts. Number one, consider using a password manager. I will not recommend specific password manager names, brands, or anything like that. There are lots of them out there. It is just recommended that you use one of them. Another thing is, please enable multi-factor authentication, also known as two-factor authentication. Every single mailing system that you use, every bank, every financial institution has sent you an email and asked you to enable multi-factor authentication on your accounts. It's time you did that, all right? And lastly, if you do still continue to use passwords, lengthen them, make them longer. Think about passphrases rather than passwords. The old 8 to 12 characters no longer applies. Modern day systems will allow you to do passwords of 20, 25, 30, or even longer phrases. So the important thing is, think about a passphrase instead of a password. You will make your passwords millions, if not trillions of times more secure the longer you make them. So that's just my recommendation overall. Jesus in John chapter 15 says, "The world would love you as one of their own if you belong to it. But you are no longer part of the world. I chose you to come out of the world, so it hates you." We have to realize that the world hates us, all right? Don't expect that the world is going to treat you like some of the saints do. It just won't happen. So the first topic I wanted to cover is in relation to senior citizens. Let's face it, scammers do target seniors. In 2022, the National Council on Aging said 88,000 people reported that they were victims of fraud. And that could have been a fraudulent email that they received, or it could have been that they lost their life savings. All of those are reportable. But you notice $3.1 billion in losses. But here's the scariest thing. Look down at the bottom. It says less than 5% of senior fraud cases are reported to authorities. That means if you look at the numbers at the top, multiply it by 20, and that's more accurate. So when we think about it, we as seniors, because I just turned 65 this year, seniors are the topic of these scammers for a couple reasons. Usually, seniors have accumulated significant finances so that they can retire comfortably in their later years. Also, we seniors, we've been through so much trouble and trauma. We're trying to have a good life. We're trying to be happy. We're trying to push love down to our grandchildren. We're trying to be someone who gets along with everyone in the world. We want to have good relationships. And these criminals actually monopolize on that. And also, the third thing is, seniors are usually not as technically savvy as other people that the scammers could encounter. So that's why we're targets. Jesus said, I've told you all this so that you may have peace in me. Here on earth you will have many trials and sorrows, but take heart because I have overcome the world. Thank you, Lord. So let's talk about malicious texts. What can you do when you get malicious texts or malicious phone calls? Well, here's something to be thinking about. These texts that you see on the screen are directly from the Federal Trade Commission's website. None of these are legitimate. These are all fraudulent, and they look convincing. AT&T, U.S. Postal Service, Amazon, Wells Fargo, Whole Foods Market, they're all fraudulent. They're all spoofed, and they all want you to do things. You notice it says, click on this link, call this number, reply yes or no, click the link below, etc. They all want you to interact with them so that at that point they have gotten a hold of you and they can do things to steal your money. The first thing that I do recommend you stop doing is don't click on the links. Don't interact with these text messages you get. Some of them are very blatant. If you look at the one on the left, this is actually directing you to a server in India. The .in means India. The .gl on the right indicates this is a server in Greenland. Why would Truist Bank recommend that you go to a server in Greenland? It just doesn't make sense. Don't interact with these messages when you receive them. So some of the recommendations for fraudulent, malicious calls or texts, consider getting yourself a call blocker. Here's something that you should think about. Many of your service providers, for example, T-Mobile, when you get a phone and a service with T-Mobile, you get T-Mobile security as part of that package. Many of us just choose not to turn that on. So my recommendation is turn it on and use it. Number two, don't interact. Don't tap or click if you can possibly help it with these spam messages or phishing messages. Number three, and you may not have known this, forward it to spam, which is 7726. If you get a text, forward it to 7726, which means it's being forwarded to your local provider so that they know you have received this fraudulent or malicious text. Number four, report it to the Federal Trade Commission and then delete it. And just a general recommendation, don't opt out of these. When you select to opt out, it usually sends a response such as unsubscribe to the sender. These crooks, I'll just use that word, these crooks share numbers and email addresses among themselves. If you respond, then they share with their buddies that this is not only an email address or a text number, this is a text number or email address that has a living, breathing human being at the other end. And they actually charge their friends even more for active email addresses and active phone numbers than they do for the regular ones. So don't interact, don't opt out. Forward it to 7726, report it to the FTC, and then delete it. Okay, next, this is the big one, malicious emails. How do you handle malicious emails? Well, the first tip that I can give you is when you're looking at the emails, make sure to check the domain. And the domain is whatever is there at the last period for .com, .mil, .gov, and those two-digit domains such as .ru for Russia, .tl for East Timor. Come on, why would somebody ask you to forward or respond to something that comes from East Timor, Greenland, India, etc.? And it's important to look at, and I'm going to do the pointer here, you notice that it says Lowe's Rewards. It sounds like it may be legitimate, and it's coming from at Lowe's Rewards, but wait a minute, the actual domain says scamserver.com, and I'm using that as an example. I made that up. So be careful that you watch for that domain, not just who it looks like it's from. And also, does it look like it makes sense? Free COVID tests at meridiancountryclub.com. Why would a country club be sending you a notice for free COVID tests? If it smells fishy, it probably is. Here are some examples that I pulled on my phone as I was looking at it. If you look at the domain, it gives you great information about who is actually sending it. This says Prudential Homes. We want to buy your house, but it's coming from brownmint.net. That is not Prudential. The one below it, PayPal, it's coming from firebaseapp.com. That's not PayPal. Lowe's Golf Cart, coming from northridgesolutions.com. And you've won Ultimate Nonstick Cookware. It says Walmart, but it's coming from lustior.com. Definitely not Walmart. So watch those domains. Now you must ask yourself, why, oh why, do I keep taking the bait from these things? Why do I keep clicking on these things and then later on regret having done so? I'm going to introduce you to a new 4-letter acronym that you should become acquainted with because it helps to drive you and hopefully slow you down a little bit so that you will be a little more discriminating before you click and respond to these things. Why do I keep taking the bait? It's because of FOMO. FOMO is short for fear of missing out. And you say, well, what does that mean? Well, what if I really did win a Ninja Never Dull Premium Knife Set from portalscourt.com? What if I really did win a DeWalt Power Station from blastcleaning.net? What if I really did win a brand new Le Creuset cookware from fateletter.info? Or an Milwaukee, you notice the bad grammar, you have won an Milwaukee power drill from Stranahanhouse.com. It says Ace Hardware, but it's not Ace Hardware. So don't take the bait. Slow down, take a look at it. Don't get caught in that FOMO loop and say, well, gee, what if I really did win this $300 cooler? If it smells fishy, it most likely is. So here are my emails My recommendations for malicious emails, fraudulent emails, spam, or phishing: give it the sniff test. If it smells fishy, it most likely is. They aren't giving away $300 coolers. They aren't giving away $200 tool sets. They are just trying to get you to, let's look at number 2, they're trying to get you to interact with them, respond, even a response of leave me alone, or a response of unsubscribe, or a response of opt out can actually cause you to receive more spam or phishing emails because they forward active responders to all of their spammer buddies. Don't do it. Don't interact if you can possibly help it. Report it to the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, and then mark it as spam or phishing. That's my recommendation. So you say, well, does it matter? Why can't I just delete it? Well, all of the email service providers that I've researched actually ask you to mark suspicious emails as spam or phishing. They're asking you to do this. Why? So that they can clean it out of other people's inboxes before they succumb to the wiles of these scammers and phishing criminals. Also, why report it to the FTC.gov? Well, they actually ask you to. The Federal Trade Commission says if it's fraud, it's against the law. It's illegal. And if you report it, your report is shared with more than 2,800 law enforcement activities around the nation. They're used to investigate criminal activities, which fraud and phishing are. So forward it to the FTC if you possibly can. And if you can't, let's say you're too busy, don't worry. Forward it to our mentorship team. We have opened an incident response team mailbox, and we will report it for you on your behalf to the Federal Trade Commission. So send us your spam. Incident response team at cs-sensei.org. So here is the bottom line. If you're going to look at one slide, this is a slide you should look at. For malicious emails or texts, the first thing to do, don't interact with it. Don't click on anything that says unsubscribe or yes or no or opt out or whatever. They're trying to get you to interact with them. Don't do it. Also, one very important thing, if they give you a phone number, even what looks like a toll-free number, call 844, whatever, don't call the number they give you. Let's say it comes from Bank of America, and you have a Bank of America account. Pull out your wallet or your pocketbook, pull out your debit card, look at the back of your debit card and call that number. That is a number you can trust, not the number they give you. Okay? Report it to the Federal Trade Commission, mark it as spam or phishing, block the sender if you can, forward it to 7726, which are the characters for spam, and then delete. If you learn only one thing, learn how to act here on this slide. I hope everyone enjoyed this. I want to share one last thing with you. You say, well, how nasty can these people be? These are two examples that I heard of, and I'm sure there are many more. The spammers or scammers will call and they'll say things like, can you hear me on the phone? The reason they're doing this is that they have recording turned on. And if they say, can you hear me? And you say, yes, they have now recorded your voice saying yes, and then they use that later on to authorize things like credit card applications in your name. And it has your voice saying, yes, I authorize this transaction. The fastest way to do it is to hang up on them. But also, if they say, can you hear me? You can answer, I can hear you. They have now recorded something that they can't use. Can you hear me? I can hear you. Here's another one. How nasty can they be? I heard this one personally. The spammer was saying, well, you sound friendly and warm like my grandma. Do you mind if I call you grandma? At the same time, they're trying to steal your life savings. Don't fall for it. This world hates you, and there's nothing you can do to make that any different. So if you're interested in any more information, please scan the QR code that's on the screen. Typically, we would recommend that you don't scan QR codes unless you know where they come from. I'm telling you where this one comes from, and it points to a resources page that I've put out on the internet that allows you to get more information, more helpful information for how to handle, how to report, etc. There's also a feedback link on there where you can send us feedback and let us know how we've done. So, did we do well? Did everyone learn at least one thing? I certainly hope so. Again, I am Pastor Scotty Ward of New Song Ministries. I pray that you and your family and friends and neighbors will learn to be smarter, will learn to be wise as serpents, harmless as doves, and be smart in this world so that you can live a joyful life and so that you can protect yourself against these criminals. God bless and thank you.